The docking bay lights flickered like dying stars. Cade Rourke leaned against the hull of his ship, fingers tracing the worn metal, tasting dust in the recycled air. He'd grown up in orphan bunks, in corridors that smelled of burnt circuits and wet fabric. Hunger had been his constant companion, and the registry had never cared. It didn't care that he'd survived fights over ration cards or slept with a wrench under his pillow. All that mattered were contracts, combat records, and the checksum proving a name belonged to a breathing body. Cade's name sat in the mercenary ledger like a warning label. And tonight, that name would get him in trouble. The job arrived as a simple polygon on his console. Dead relay outpost. Priority package. Quiet extraction. No questions. Hunger made him agreeable, and no questions was the kind of poetry liars wrote. He approached the outpost under the guise of a medical hauler, lights dimmed, engines humming softly. Dock clamps were frozen, corridors dark. No heat signatures, no life. Too clean, like someone had scrubbed away every trace of existence. Cade's visor swept the corridor. Then he saw it, a sealed chamber with imperial glyphs glowing faintly in warning. A handwritten note read, "Do not open." Cade opened it anyway. Inside was a woman in stasis. She looked human at first glance, until her eyes caught the light. Tiny rings swirled within the iris, like a trapped solar system. Bioluminescent streaks shimmered along her cheekbones, fading in waves. Her hair glinted metallic silver, tangled starlight caught in strands. Cade's pulse quickened. Before he could think, his comms erupted. Imperial pings, sharp and urgent. A convoy slid out of the fog, hull codes flashing like a predator's warning. Drones swarmed the docking ring. Power down. Prepare for boarding. Cade exhaled, half laughing. The free death trial begins. Metal clanged outside. He tore the stasis web, dragging her upright. "If you're royalty, now's a good time to mention it," he muttered. "If not, act like it. Confidence is cheaper than ammo." Her eyes opened fully. Galaxies spun in her pupils. Her cheek flex pulsed briefly, trembling. Boots thundered closer. Cade moved for the airlock, a grin tugging at his lips. The first trooper rounded the corner. Weapon raised. Then froze, not at Cade's gun, but at the woman beside him. Recognition codes flashed on the visor. Panic clear. "Okay," Cade whispered. "Definitely royalty." She didn't glance at the trooper. She looked at him, as if his name had unlocked a sealed door in her mind. "Good news," he said softly. "Your rescue comes with free sarcasm. Bad news, I charge extra for breathing today." The palace was a labyrinth of gold-scented fear. Cade moved in borrowed technician's coveralls, the name tag reading, TAVI. He touched it nervously. Tavin. Sounds like a man who pays taxes on time. Beside him, the woman walked as if gravity itself bent for her. Human enough to delay recognition, alien enough to make guards hesitate. Her cheek flex pulsed faintly whenever she tried to hide amusement. Metallic hair threads flickered under the corridor lights. "You're late," Cade said. "I wasn't aware this was a date," she replied. The translator interpreted. "Try harder, peasant." Cade choked. A guard appeared at the next junction. "Technician, state your task code." Cade raised a small datapad, praying. It displayed a rotating triangle and the words, "Ventilation calibration, extremely big." The best lie he'd ever bought. The scanner beeped twice. Eyes glazed with disinterest. "Proceed." He walked past with the Queen at his shoulder. Only when the guard was out of earshot did he breathe. "Your empire," he murmured, "is one board employee away from collapse." "Careful," she said. "Someone might make that your official job title." They reached a maintenance hatch. Cade popped it open and crawled through, pulling her after him. She didn't complain. That unnerved him more than any protest would have. Through the cramped crawlspace, his implant caught faint chatter. Court security, internal audits, a missing stasis web, an impossible human signature. "They're looking for me," he said. "They're looking for the idea of you," she answered calmly. Her cheek flex flared, betraying something sharp under the calm. "Your name shouldn't exist in their archives." That's flattering. Most people just say I shouldn't exist in their apartment. They dropped into an unused map room. Holographic constellations floated mid-air, shifting as if stars themselves were undecided. Cade moved to a console and plugged in a wire. The screen blinked, offering a polite prompt, "Enter authority." Cade typed, "Please." Rejected. "Pretty please." Rejected. "I am definitely not a mercenary breaking into royal systems," he typed. The console paused, then locked harder. Alarm icon. Liar detected. "Also rude. Your palace has feelings," he muttered. "It has standards," she replied. Her mouth twitched, barely resisting a smile. Footsteps echoed. Multiple sets, efficient. Hungry. Cade unplugged quickly. "New plan?" she asked. "We hide inside the galaxy," he said, pointing at the star map. "That's not a plan," she replied. "It's poetic." He produced a tiny, illegal pocket jammer. Thumbed it on. Holographic stars exploded, spilling false constellations across the room. The doors opened. Guards entered, instantly disoriented, colliding with each other in confusion. Cade grabbed her hand. Her cheek flex glowed, not fear this time, but laughter. "Cade RK," she said, voice low. He looked at her. "Yeah," she said. "I don't know why that name makes my chest hurt. But someone spent a great deal of power making sure I wouldn't remember." Cade grinned colder. "Then let's go find the receipt." They slipped into the neutral archive station, Vellum. "Welcome back, liability," Cade said. "Miss you too." The Queen walked beside him, hood up, calm nailed into place. Until the light caught her eyes, rings within rings, and the faint cheek flex that pulsed whenever she tried to hide feeling. A librarian drone floated in. "Declare your purpose." "Research," Cade said. "Define research," it replied. "Finding out who lied about my life." They rented a shielded booth. Cade jacked in, watching his mercenary ledger unfold. Contracts, kills, debts, until a chunk turned to static. Legal text. Partition redacted authority. Throne decision. "I didn't know I was important enough to be censored," he said. "You aren't," the Queen replied. Then her cheek flex flared. "You shouldn't be." She summoned her vault. Bloodline locks. Crown cipher. One file surfaced. Time-stamped. Classified. Encrypted. Access deed. Decision of the throne. For a moment, she didn't breathe. They had used her authority against her. Cade laughed softly. "That is impressively rude." He ran cross-queries. Convoy telemetry, launch manifests, casualty lists. A corrupted frame surfaced. A royal capsule spinning in debris, a human clamped to it, dragging through fire as if stubbornness could bend physics. "That's not me," Cade whispered. Her gaze didn't waver. "It is." He tried humor. "Found only nerves. I don't remember being heroic. I remember being hungry." Her voice quiet. "I remember a corridor. Heat. Metal. Screaming. Someone shouting at me to breathe." Her eyes lifted. "Your voice." Vellum's AI chimed. Reminder. Vellum is not responsible for existential crises. Outside, footsteps arrived, too heavy for librarians. The console flashed. "Imperial security requests your cooperation. Options. Comply or comply faster." Cade ripped a crystal shard from the booth core, an immutable ledger block. Proof someone edited the universe. She stared at the denied file, a version of herself forbidden to meet. "They erased it." "They tried," Cade said softly. "So come on. We'll steal our memories back, in public. It'll be funny." Booth door rattled. Voice cold. "Open by order of the throne." Cade grinned. "Tell your throne to take a number. We're busy remembering." They were cornered in Vellum's docking ring. Troopers formed a neat arc, rifles raised. AI projected. "Please do not bleed on the floor. Cleaning fees apply." Cade held the shard in one hand, pulse pistol in the other. The Queen stood beside him, hood down, eyes uncovered, cheek flex steady. Commander stepped forward. "Your Majesty, return." The human will be detained. Cade leaned close. Does questioning include snacks? His delicate cheek flex brightened. Iron voice. He will not be detained. I am the throne. Visors jittered, authority conflicted. Cade pressed the shard. Archives confessed. Across the galaxy, bounty boards crashed. Contracts dissolved. Audit flags bloomed like bruises. Queen spoke. She named the suppressed convoy, the erased casualties, the mesh on her mind. Then she said Cade's name, clearly, without fear. Cade felt whole. The orphan, finally hearing the first honest line of his story. Troopers hesitated. Cade holstered his pistol. Look at that. Nobody exploded yet. Her hand found his wrist. You saved me twice. From death, and from forgetting. He shrugged softly. Don't make it a habit. Royal rescues ruin my reputation. And somewhere in the starlit corridors of Vellum, the galaxy paused, to watch the myth and the human who refused to be erased. The docking bay of Vellum Station seemed quieter now, but Cade knew better. Silence was only the eye of a storm, and the storm had boots, visors, and rifles. Outside, the galaxy hung in placid darkness, stars scattered like glitter on black velvet, but Cade had learned that darkness could hide anything. Do you usually hand out death sentences at sunrise? Cade muttered, glancing at the Queen. She didn't flinch. I prefer noon. Brighter light makes the panic more dramatic. Her voice carried a calm cadence, but the faint flex on her cheek pulsed like a warning. Ringed eyes met his. Do not underestimate them. The Empire will not take this lightly. Cade scratched his jaw. They already erased me once. Guess I'm due for a sequel. Her faint smile was almost human, almost dangerous. Then let's make sure the sequel has a plot twist. They moved through the station corridors, dodging sensors and patrols like shadows dancing on a broken stage. Cade clutched the crystal shard, the only tangible proof of reality left in a galaxy edited by fear. Do you ever wonder, he said, whispering, why someone made you forget me? Or, everything I did? Her gaze held for a heartbeat too long. Memory is a tool, Cade. And some tools are sharpened to protect the powerful, or to destroy the innocent. The corridors opened into a vast atrium, holographic constellations spilling from the ceiling like liquid light. Cade stopped, stunned. They didn't tell me your palace was so theatrical. Theatrical saves lives, she said, eyes scanning the guards' patrol patterns. It hides the truth. Makes the ordinary feel extraordinary, and the extraordinary, terrifying. Cade nodded. He knew terrifying. He had survived border fog, starvation, and imperial convoys. But the truth hiding here felt heavier. Like a weight pressed not on his shoulders, but on his very pulse. They reached a side hatch, its locking mechanism humming faintly. Cade pulled out a small toolkit, flicking switches and pulling levers like a magician revealing a trick. Do you mind if I open this? She tilted her head. Do what you must, but leave the theatrics to me. The hatch slid open, revealing a narrow crawlspace leading to the lower archives, a place Cade had been told only librarians, archivists, and the dead entered. He crawled in first, dragging her along. The air was cold, sterile, smelling faintly of burnt circuits and old paper. Lower archives, Cade muttered. Where the Empire buries its secrets, and occasionally, people. Mostly secrets, she corrected. The faint glow of her cheek flex pulsing as they moved. People are easier to replace. Cade swallowed. That's encouraging. The crawlspace opened into a massive chamber. Holographic displays floated mid-air, streams of data forming constellations of information. Cade's eyes widened. Here lay the Empire's hidden truths, unlaunched convoys, secret arrests, erased names, forgotten treaties. And you want what exactly? He asked. Everything, she said. Everything they tried to erase. Everything they used to rewrite the story of the galaxy. Cade grinned. That's ambitious. Also, dangerous. Dangerous was his middle name. He had survived ambushes, contract betrayals, and zero-gravity fistfights. But the danger here was different. It had a name, Imperial Authority. And it was watching. They began combing through the archives. Cade fed the shard into a console, bypassing security protocols with the kind of recklessness only necessity breeds. Files began unfolding, old convoys, erased battle records, secret assassinations. One by one, suppressed realities returned, flickering into existence like ghosts finally allowed to breathe. Then Cade froze. "Something wrong?" she asked, noticing his posture. He pointed to a holographic file spinning mid-air. Timestamp. 10 years ago. Frame corrupted. A capsule spinning in debris, a human figure clinging desperately. The shard illuminated it, and the figure's face was unmistakable. "Is that me?" he whispered. She didn't answer immediately. Her ringed eyes softened, almost imperceptibly. "You were meant to die. Or vanish." The Empire decided the myth was more important than the human. Cade clenched his jaw. "So they erased my story, and made me nothing." "You were never nothing," she said, voice low but unwavering. "You were a variable they could not control, and for that, you became a threat." Threats had been his life. He had sold himself, lied, killed, and survived. But now the threat was personal, threaded with memory, loyalty, and something he could not name yet. "All right," he said finally, shaking off the chill. "Then we fix it. One erased convoy at a time." They worked in silence, only the hum of the archives breaking the stillness. Cade accessed flight manifests, convoy telemetry, casualty logs. Each revealed a galaxy rewritten by fear and bureaucracy. Then a low alarm sounded. The chamber doors locked automatically. Red lights flashed, casting the room in an angry glow. "Imperial lockdown," the Queen muttered. "They know we're here." Cade's fingers danced over the console. "Lockdown won't hold me. It's an old model. I've danced through worse locks with fewer fingers." Guards poured into the atrium above. They had been patient, efficient, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. Now, hesitation would be costly. The Queen's hand found his wrist. "We do this together. Or not at all." Cade's grin returned, sharper than before. "Then together it is." They initiated a data purge. Files flickered, security protocols blinked, and the archives began broadcasting suppressed truths. Across Velum Station, monitors glitched, printers jammed, and drones hesitated mid-flight as if reality itself had caught a cold. Guards charged. Cade ducked, fired a pulse pistol, and vaulted onto a data console. Sparks flew, illuminating the Queen's face, rings in her eyes spinning like twin galaxies. She moved with precision, disarming a guard and redirecting him into another's path. Chaos unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance. "Ever do this before?" Cade shouted over the alarms. "Only for emergencies," she said, flipping a control panel, causing a holo barrier to spin, trapping the guards temporarily. "This qualifies." They slipped through the chaos, heading for the docking ring. Cade tossed a smoke sphere, filling the corridor with silvery mist that refracted light into dazzling illusions. Guards stumbled, visors flickered, and the station itself seemed confused. Outside, Cade's ship waited, engines thrumming like a heartbeat. He activated the landing clamps remotely. "Your chariot awaits, my queen." She raised an eyebrow. "I can ride a ship, you know. Not necessary to flatter me." "Flattery's free," he said, grabbing her hand as they ran. They reached the ship just as a squadron of drones emerged, sensors locking. Cade slotted the shard into the ship's console, initiating a system override. Lights blinked green, engines roared, and the ship lifted off. "Where to?" she asked. "Somewhere they can't rewrite history," he said. "Somewhere we tell the galaxy its real story." The stars stretched into lines as they jumped to hyperspace. Cade finally exhaled. The Queen's hand stayed in his. Ringed eyes glimmered, cheek flex steady. "Cade," she said softly, almost a whisper. "You saved more than me today. You saved the truth." Cade smirked. "And you saved me from being irrelevant. Teamwork, then." Her laugh was quiet, alien, but real. Teamwork. Hyperspace shimmered around them. Somewhere in the galaxy, the Empire would recover. They always did. But Cade and the Queen had a head start. A chance to rewrite what had been stolen. To give life back to names, stories, and truths. Cade leaned back in the pilot seat, pulse slowing. "You know," he said, voice low, "I thought being important meant money, contracts, survival. Turns out, it means fighting for reality itself." The Queen's gaze met his, a quiet intensity threading the space between them. "Importance isn't given. It's reclaimed. And you just reclaimed yours." Cade allowed himself a small smile, dangerous, weary, but human. The galaxy stretched infinite before them, and for the first time in years, he felt limitless. Stars slid past the viewport like silver ribbons. Somewhere, out there, the myths waited to be unraveled, the lies to be corrected, and the galaxy to remember. And Cade Rourke. Cade Rourke was no longer just a name on a ledger. He was a force the Empire could not ignore, a human untethered by lies, and a companion the Queen could not erase. The ship hummed, hyperspace carried them forward, and the adventure had only just begun.